Hello everyone, this is Stephen Baltz, your instructor for computer applications at Ozarka College. In this video, this is going to be the second part of working through Access Module 1. I'm going to be starting on page 27, page AC 27 in this video. If you haven't already worked through the last video to create the first table in the database, you'll need to go ahead and do that first. And then in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the process of creating the second table in the database, and then we're also going to create some other objects like a query, a form, and a report. Okay, so from the end of the last video, we had just created the account manager table and added the records to the table. And when I left off in the last video, we still had the account manager table open in datasheet view. So the first thing we need to do here to continue on with this module is we need to go ahead and close the account manager table. Okay, and make sure the navigation pane is open, and of course it shows our account manager table that we created in the last video. Alright, so now we're ready to start with page 27 in the textbook, and what we're going to do is learn how to import an Excel worksheet into an Access database. So when we create the account table in the PrattLast Associates database, we're going to actually, instead of creating it from within Access, we're going to import it as a Excel worksheet into Access, and it's going to basically change that worksheet into a Access table. Alright, so if you'll notice on page 27, you might kind of read through the information about importing data from other applications into Access. Alright, now before we actually import the data into Access to create the second table, we need a data file from Ozarka. So we're going to need to open up our browser, open up Ozarka, and log in, and go, of course, to the CPSI 1003 course, Intro to Computer Applications, and then you're going to click the Activities link on the left-hand side. Okay, and of course it shows week by week what we've done this semester. You need to go down to week 11 and click on the Access Module 1 link. Alright, once you do that, it will give you some instructions for Access Module 1 and the page numbers to work through, and then it also shows a link to the video, the first video that I've already uploaded into Ozarka. So that's the first video, and then right below the video you'll see the account worksheet link. Okay, that account link is the link to the workbook or worksheet from Excel that we're going to need to import into Access in just a minute. So in order to save this to your computer, what you're going to do is right click on the account file link here. Okay, just right click where it says account, and you'll see a shortcut menu open. On the shortcut menu you need to click on Save Link As, and you'll see a Save As dialog box open. And then in the file name box down here on the bottom, you'll need to type in as the name, you'll type in account. Okay, you'll type in account there as the file name, and of course you'll need to navigate up here in the upper pane. You'll need to navigate to where you want to save the file, and what I would do is just save it wherever you normally save your data files for this class, as long as you're able to find it in just a minute when we get ready to use it. Okay, and I've already saved mine, so I don't need to click on save again, but if you haven't already saved it, you'll need to click on save. Once you get the account file name typed in, just click the save button right here, and that will save your account file to your computer, and then we can go back to the Access database. Alright, and what we need to do is look on page 28. It tells us how to import an Excel worksheet. Okay, and so what we're going to do is click on the External Data tab up here. Alright, so you're just going to click it. You may be on the Home tab to start with. You'll need to click on the External Data tab up here on the ribbon. Okay, and then what you'll need to do is find the Import and Link group on the External Data tab. Okay, there's an Import and a Link group, and then there's an Export group. But since we know we're going to be importing from Excel into Access, we need to be in the Import and Link section. Okay, now I noticed on my version of Access, the Import and Link section looks a little bit different than it does in the textbook. In the textbook, you'll notice it shows a link to Excel in the Import and Link section by default. On my computer, and maybe on some of your computers as well, what you'll have to do is use the New Data Source in the Import and Link group. Okay, and that's what I'm going to have to do. So since Excel doesn't automatically show up in the Import and Link, I'm going to go ahead and click on New Data Source, and then point to From File, and then click on Excel. Alright, and that opens up the Get External Data Excel Spreadsheet dialog box. Now, if your computer, if your ribbon in Access looks just like the book, then what you'll do is just click the Excel link in the Import and Link section of the External Data tab sheet. Okay, on mine I had to go through it a little bit differently because my ribbon looks a little bit different. Alright, so once you're in the Get External Data dialog box, what you'll need to do is click the Browse button next to the File Name box, and what you'll do is navigate using the navigation bar here. You'll navigate to the location where you saved that account file. Okay, where you saved that account data file that we got from the activities page in Ozarka. Alright, so there I'm located mine, so I'm just going to click on the file name account that I saved just a few minutes ago, and then I'm going to click the Open button. Okay, and what it will do is the file name box up here at the top, right up here, will show the path to where that file is, that data file called account. Alright, once you get that done, you'll need to go to step 4 on page 29, and you'll make sure that the import the source data into a new table in the current database is selected. You'll notice there are 3 options here. You'll need to make sure the first option is selected, which is import the data, the source data into a new table in the current database. Okay. Alright, so just make sure that's selected and then click OK. Alright, now this first step of the wizard, now you notice now we're in the Import Spreadsheet wizard. You'll notice the name at the top of the dialog box here. In a wizard, just like other wizards that we've used this semester, a wizard is just a way that Microsoft Office kind of guides us through the process of doing something. In this case, we're importing the Excel worksheet into an Access database, and so it's going to kind of guide us through the process. So it's kind of a step-by-step procedure for going through this import process. Alright, so first thing it says to do on step 4 on page 29 is we need to make sure that first row contains column headings. It needs to be selected, so right now it's not selected. And so I need to click on the little checkbox next to first row contains column headings. What that's going to do is that's going to make the first row in the worksheet, in the Excel worksheet, the field names in our new table. Okay, so just make sure that little checkbox next to first row contains column headings is selected. Alright, and you'll notice it shows a little preview down here, shows a little preview of what our account table is going to look like. You'll notice it's got the account number field, account name, street, city, state, postal code. Alright, so once you get that selected up here, first row contains column headings, you're going to click next. Alright, in this step of the wizard, and we're on step 5 on page 29, it says because field options don't need to be specified in our case, we can click on the next button. Okay, so we're not going to need to do anything in this step, we just need to click on next. Alright, and that brings us to step 6 on page 30 in the textbook, and here it says we need to click on choose my own primary key, and then make sure account number is selected as the primary key field right here. Okay, so that's it. What we've done here is we've just specified that the primary key field, that unique identifier in the account table, is going to be account number. Account number is what's going to uniquely identify each account in the account table. Okay, so that's what we're specifying here. Alright, so just make sure that choose my own primary key is selected and account number is selected in the box next to it, and then click next. And then this step is going to ask us to name the table, and in this case we need to type in account as the name of the table. Alright, so we're just typing in account as the name of the table, and then we're going to click the finish button. Alright, and in your book on step 8, in step 9, it says to save the import steps. That's not really critical for us, so I'm going to skip over that part. I'm just not going to save the import steps. You can go through that process if you want to. It's not really that important for us, so I'm going to just skip over that part, and then I'm just going to click the close button. Okay, so now you'll notice there are 2 tables now in the navigation pane in our database. The account table that we created in the last video, or actually the account manager table that we created in the last video, and the account table that we just created using the import wizard. Okay, alright, so our next step on page 31, you'll notice that in table 1-5 on page 31 in the textbook, it shows the structure of the account table. You'll need to refer to this in just a minute, because what we're going to do next is we're going to open up the account table in design view, just like we did for the first table, and we're going to go through and make sure that all the field sizes and data types and any other specifications are completed for the account table. Alright, so if you'll notice on step 1 on page 32, it says open the navigation pane if necessary. So again, you can use the shutter bar open close button to hide and show the navigation pane, and so make sure that it's showing. Alright, then you're going to right click on the account table on the navigation pane, and then on the shortcut menu that opens, you're going to click on design view. Okay, going to click on design view, and that opens up that table in design view, and then you can click the shutter bar open close button to hide the navigation pane, so you have more room to see what you're doing. Alright, then what it says to do on step 2 on page 32, it says we need to click the description box over here on the first row for account number here. So you're going to find account number, the account number field in design view, and click on the description box for the account number field, and you're going to type in what's shown there on step 2 on page 32. So you're going to type in account number, and then in parentheses 2 uppercase letters followed by a 3-digit number. So that description, and if you remember, we added a description to one of the fields in the first table as well. A description just kind of allows somebody that may not have created the database to know what to enter into that field. So anytime a field is not it's not real easy to understand what goes in that field, a description kind of helps someone who didn't actually create the database to still know what kind of data needs to go in that particular field. Okay, so that's kind of the purpose of the description. All right, and so we've got that added as the description, and then make sure the account number field is still selected up here. All right, that you're still on the account number row right here, and then you're going to go down to the field size, and right now it says 255. We need to change that to 5, okay, because the account number field is going to be 5 characters. Okay, alright, and then we're also going to need to add a caption for this field, so we're going to click on the caption box down here on the field properties pane down at the bottom, and we're going to type in the caption, which, remember, a caption is just kind of like an abbreviation of the field name, and it's used to save space in our tables, to save some horizontal space. Alright, so we've got AC # entered as the caption. Alright, then we need to look on table 1-5, just like I kind of talked about earlier. We need to go back to page 31, look in table 1-5 at the structure of the account table, and just kind of go one by one through the field names for this table and make sure everything is set up correctly. Okay, make sure all of the definitions of the fields are set up correctly. So we've got account number done. We've got this first field defined. Now we need to go back. We need to go down to the account name field, which is the second row up here, and that one needs to be short text data type, which it's already set to. And then the only other thing we need to change on this one, you'll notice in that table 1-5, is the field size. So we're going to go down here to the field properties box and change the field size to 30. Then we're going to go up to the street field up here, which is the third row. That one needs to be short text as well, which it's already set to, you'll notice. And then down at the bottom, the field size needs to be set to 20. Alright, then we're going to go to the city field up here, and that one needs to be short text, which it already is, and the field size needs to be 20. Now, make sure that you are actually going through and changing the field size for the fields that need to be changed, and adding, changing the data types for the fields that need to be changed. These things are important. These are things I will check when I'm grading. Okay? Alright, so we've got the city field done. Now we're going to go to the state field, and that one needs to be short text, which it's already set to. Field size needs to be 2. So you're going to do it the same way that we've done the other ones. Alright, and then postal code is going to be short text, and then you're going to go down to field size, and that one's going to be 5. Alright, and then amount paid is going to use the currency data type, which it's already set to. And then remember, the currency data type, you don't need to change the field size for a currency data type field. So we're going to go down to current due, make sure it's set to currency, which it is, so we don't need to do anything with that one. And then our last one, account manager number, we will need to make some changes to this one. Alright, you'll notice it uses the short text data type, which it's already set to. We do need to change the field size to 2. Alright, and then it also has a description, so we'll need to go up here to the description section on the upper pane here next to account manager number, and we need to type in the description that's shown there. So account manager number of account manager for account. Okay, so we've got that, and then the only other thing we need to do is add a caption for the account manager number field. So we're going to go down here to caption for the account manager number field, and we're going to add the caption AM space £. Alright, just like it shows there in table 1-5 on page 31. Alright, so at this point we've got all the fields defined for the account table. So we need to click the Save button on the Quick Access toolbar to save our changes. Alright, and it may ask, since we imported a lot of the data from Excel and a lot of the structure of the table, you may get a message like this that says some data may be lost. Do you want to continue anyway? Just click yes. Alright, and we haven't lost anything. It's just you get that message when you use the import feature. Okay, alright, so we've got the structure completed. So now on page 33, it wants us, on step 1 under to close the table, it wants us to click the close button for the account table. Okay, and then what we're going to do is open up the navigation pane and right click on the account table, and this time we're going to click the open button on the shortcut menu to open up the table in data sheet view. Okay, alright, this allows us to see the actual records in the table instead of just the structure of the table. Alright, and then you can close the navigation pane. And what we need to do, just like we did on the first table, on this table we need to widen out the columns to best fit. Alright, so just like we did on the first table, we're going to point to the right boundary of each one of the column headings one by one and double click. Alright, just like we did on the first table. We're just widening out all the columns so that nothing is hidden. Before we did this, you notice that part of the text was hidden because the columns were not wide enough to fit the entries in the columns. Okay, alright, so we've got all of our columns set to best fit, and now we can click the Save button to save the changes, because when you widen out the columns, that is part of the structure of the table, and so we have to click the Save button to save those changes. And then once you save the changes, you're going to close the table by clicking its Close button. Okay, then you can click the Shutter bar Open Close button to view the two tables that we have in our database. Alright, on page 34 we're going to create what's called a query, and it talks about queries on page 34. A query is basically a question that we're asking of the database in order to retrieve just certain information from the database. And so what we're going to do is use a wizard again, just like we used a wizard to import the data into that second table. Now we're going to use what's called a simple query wizard to create a query. Alright, so make sure the navigation pane is open, and you're going to make sure the account table is selected. Alright, so make sure if the account table is not already selected, select it, because we're going to base our query on the account table. Alright, so make sure the account table is selected in the navigation pane, and then go to the Create tab up on the ribbon. And then what you're going to do is find the Queries group on the Create tab and find the Query Wizard button and click on Query Wizard. And it just opens up the new query dialog box. And in this dialog box there are 4 options here. Just make sure Simple Query Wizard is selected and then click OK. And that opens up the Simple Query Wizard dialog box. And this wizard is just like the import wizard that we used just a minute ago. It's going to take us through a series of steps to create the query that we want to create. Alright, so on page 35, step 3, we're going to make sure the account number field is selected in the available fields column here, and then click on the add button, which is the little button that looks like a little right pointing arrow. Okay, so you're going to click right there, and it adds account number to this selected fields column over here. Alright, and then we're going to click on the amount paid field. I'm sorry, we need to actually click on account name next. Alright, so we've got account number already selected, and now account name we're going to select over in the available fields column, and then click on the add button. Alright, so now we should have account number and account name in the selected fields column. Now we're going to go to amount paid, and click on add, and then current due, and click on add, and then account manager number, and click on add. So you'll notice we've added all the fields from the account table except street, city, state, and postal code. Okay, so these are the ones we didn't select. These are the ones we did select. So just make sure you have those the correct fields in the selected fields column. If you didn't do it correctly, you can go back and undo and try it again. Okay, but make sure you have the correct selected fields in the correct order. Once you have that, click on the next button, and this is where it's going to ask us, would we like detail or summary in our query. In this case, we're going to make sure that detail is selected. It should already be selected, but if it's not, just click on it. So details should be selected, and then click on next. And then this last step of the wizard is going to ask us what we want to name this new object, this query in our database. And in this case, it wants us to just use the default name, which is account query. And then, so just make sure account query is shown as the title of the query up here, and then you're going to click on the finish button. Okay, and it's just going to open up the query in datasheet view. Alright, and now we've created the query. You'll notice there's an account query over here on the navigation pane showing that we've created it. And now what we're going to do is click the close button for the query. Okay, alright, now queries are normally designed to find just specific information from a table in the database. So what we're going to do next is learn how to use a criterion in a query. Okay, a criterion is kind of like a rule that we're setting so that Access shows us just certain information that meet a certain criterion. The data has to meet a certain criterion in order to display in the results of the query. So what we're going to do to set up the criterion for the query is we're going to right click on the account query over in the navigation pane over here, and we're going to click on design view on the shortcut menu, and that opens up the query in design view. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click the criteria row under the account manager number field down here on the bottom pane. You'll notice there's a criteria row under account manager number over here. Okay, under account manager number, we're going to click right here under account manager number, and we're going to type in 35 as the criterion. Okay, so basically the way we're setting this up is we're asking Access a question. Basically, we're setting up this query to have Access show us only those accounts in the account table that are managed by account manager number 35. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We're basically setting up the Criterion 35 under account manager number to basically have access show us only those accounts that are handled by account manager number 35. So once you get 35 typed in as the Criterion under the account manager number field, you're going to click the Run button up here on the Results group on the Query Tools Design tab sheet up on the ribbon. You're going to click the Run button, and what happens is it shows us the results of the query, which in this case, it shows us just those records from the account table that are handled by Account Manager 35. And you can see that all the account manager numbers in the results that we got show 35 as the account manager number. Okay, and so anytime you run a query, you want to make sure that the results that you get make sense. In this case, you would look at the account manager number field in the results and make sure that all of them meet the condition that we set, or the criterion that we specified. Alright, so we've got that done. Now we want to click the Close button for the account query. And you'll notice on step 5 on page 38, it tells us that when it asks us in this dialog box here, do we want to save the changes of the design of the account query, we need to click the No button. So we're going to click on No so that it does not add the criterion to the saved query. So, and the reason that you would do that is so that you can reuse the query multiple times and not have to go in and delete the criterion each time. Okay. All right. Now on the bottom of page 38, it shows you the steps in printing the results of a query. We don't need to do that since we're not going to be printing this anyway. All right. So the next thing we need to do is on page 39, which is creating a form. All right, a form is basically just another way that you can view the data sheet. Another way that you can view the table. And a form basically, instead of showing all the columns and rows at one time, like it does in a data sheet where you can see multiple records at one time, on a form, you only see one record at a time. In other words, one row in the table at a time. Alright, so let's go ahead and go through the process of creating the form. So on step 1 on page 39, it says to make sure the account table is selected on the navigation pane. Alright, and since we were just working with the account query, you'll actually have to make sure, you'll have to click on the account table up here to make sure that we're creating the form from the correct object in our database. Alright, so make sure the account table is selected in the navigation pane. Then you're going to click the Create tab, and you'll notice there's a Forms group on the Create tab. So you're going to click on the Form button right here, and it just automatically creates the form. Okay, and again, you'll notice that it shows us, instead of showing us all of the records at one time like it does on a data sheet, on form view, or on this form, it shows us just one record at a time. Alright, and some people like to use form view to edit the records in the database table because you can focus just on one record at a time. Alright, and on step 3 on page 40, it wants us to click the Next Record button 3 times to move to record 4. So this is the navigation, or the navigation bar down here on the bottom where it says record, and it shows 1 of 15 down here. If you click on the Next Record button, which is the button that looks like a right pointing arrow that's directly to the right of the box that says 1 of 15, if you click on that 3 times, you'll notice it moves you to record 4. So now instead of 1 of 15, we're on 4 of 15. Okay? And it's just showing us how we would navigate from one record to the next if we were looking at our table in form view, which is what we're doing right now. Alright, now we want to save this form by clicking the Save button up here on the Quick Access toolbar. And it's going to ask us for a name for the form, and we're going to type in Account Form. And since it already has the name Account in there, and the reason it's using Account as the form name right now is because that was the name of the table that we used to generate this form. And so all you need to do is click to the right of the word Account and then type in the word Form. Okay, so now we've got the form name is Account Form. We're going to click OK. You'll notice it adds that new object that we just saved, the form, in the navigation pane. So now we've got 4 objects created in our database. We've got the 2 tables that we created, the account query that we just created, and the account form that we just created. Alright, now we need to go ahead and close the form by clicking its Close button. Alright, now the last thing we need to do on this database, last thing that we need to do basically in Access Module 1 is on page 41. We need to create a report, okay? And it talks about what a report is and what it's used for on page 41 and 42. A report is basically a way that we can take a table and from the database and generate a professional looking document that has just the information on it that is important to us at a particular time. A lot of businesses will use reports from a database to take to meetings that are going to then be used. The data on the report will be used to make decisions in that meeting. Okay, so if you'll notice figure 1-67 on page 41, we're going to create a report called the Account Financial Report. Okay, so to create the report, what we're going to do on page 42 is step 1 there. We're going to make sure the account table is selected on the navigation pane, and we're going to go to the Create tab. Anytime you're creating a new object in Access, you use the Create tab. Alright, so we go to the Create tab, and you'll notice there is a Reports group. Alright, and you're going to find the Reports group, and then you're going to click on the Report button in the Reports group. Alright, and it just automatically creates the report based on the account table, just like it did the form that we created earlier. Okay, once the report opens up in the database window, what we need to do is save it. So we're going to click the Save button up on the Quick Access toolbar, and I'm on step 3 on page 42 at this point, and it wants us to type in as the report name Account Financial Report. Since it already has the word account in the report name box, I'm just going to click to the right of the word account, press space, and then type in Financial Report. Alright, so make sure Account Financial Report is specified as the report name, and then I'm going to click OK. Alright, so we've got our Account Financial Report saved over here in the navigation pane. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to make some modifications to the report. So on page 43, actually before we make the modifications, it wants us to close the report. So we're going to click the Close button for the report. Okay, you'll notice the reports down here, Account Financial Report. What you're going to do is right click on the Account Financial Report in the navigation pane, and we're going to click on Layout View on the navigation or on the shortcut menu. Okay, so after you right click on the report, on the Account Financial Report, you're going to on the shortcut menu that opens when you right click it, you're going to click on Layout View. Okay, and the reason that we're doing this is because Layout View is the view that you can use to make modifications to the table. Alright, so once you get that done, you can close the navigation pane. Alright, so you can see more of what you're doing on the report. And then what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to modify the title of the report. So you're going to click up here where it says account as the title of the report. Alright, and then you're going to click it one more time to bring up the edit box around it. So we clicked on it once to select it, and then we clicked on it one more time to open up the edit box around the title up here. Okay, you'll notice right now it is titled account because account was the name of the table that we used to create the report. Alright, so what we want to do is on step 2 on page 44, it wants us to title this report Account Financial Report. The name account is already there, the word account, so we're going to click to the right of the word account, press the space bar just like it says on step 2 on page 44, and then you're going to type in financial report. Okay, so it should read account financial report as the title of the report. Alright, then what we're going to do is click the column heading for the street field. Okay, right down here where it says street, that's one of the fields in the account table. We're going to click on the street column heading to select it. And basically what we want to do is we want to highlight or select the column headings for the fields that we want to delete from the report. Okay, since this is a financial report, we don't really need the street field, the city field, the state field, or the postal code field in the report. Okay, so all the fields that relate to the address of each account, we don't need that information. So what we're going to do is make sure again that the street field is selected, or the street column heading is selected. And then while holding down the control key on our keyboard, we're going to select the city column heading, the state column heading, and then the postal code column heading, and then release the control key. Alright, so now we have street, city, state, and postal code all selected. Okay, then what we're going to do is that last bulleted item on step 2 on page 44 says to click the Arrange tab up on the ribbon. So right up here on the ribbon where it says Arrange, we're going to click on the Arrange tab, and then we're going to click Select Column in the Rows and Columns group. Okay, so right here where it says Select Column, we're going to click on that, and what that does is that selects the entire column, not just the heading, but the entire columns for the headings that we had selected. Okay, and then what we're going to do to delete those fields that we don't need in this report, we're going to press the delete key on our keyboard. Okay, and that just deletes all of those columns that we had selected. Alright, now on the third bulleted item on step 3 on page 44, it says to click the column heading for the account number field twice. So right here on the account number field, we're going to click on that twice. Once to select it, and then one more time to bring up the edit box around it, just like we did for the main title of the report just a minute ago. Okay, and then what we're going to do is on step 4 on page 45, we're going to delete the name of the field here where it says, where it has the caption AC # for the account number field. We're going to highlight that or delete it. Okay, we're going to delete that, and we're going to type in the full name for the account manager number field. Okay, I'm sorry, account number field. All right, so we're going to type in account number as the name of the field. Okay, basically what we're doing is, instead of the caption showing on the report, we want the full name of the field to display on the report. Okay, so instead of the caption for account number displaying on the report, we want the full name to display. And the reason that you would do that on a report is because, again, a report is normally something that you're going to use to make decisions, and you're going to take it to a meeting, and people need to know what that particular field means. So that's why we're changing it to the full name. All right. And what we just did for account number, we're going to do the same thing over here for the account manager number. So we're going to click on account manager number, the account manager number field, the column heading here, account manager number, and we're going to click on it one more time to bring up the edit box around it. We're going to delete what's there as the account manager number caption, and we're going to type in the full name, account manager number. Okay. All right. Once you get that done, you're going to click the account number field heading to select it. All right. So you're over here on the very first column heading again. Account number field heading should be selected, and then you're going to point to the lower boundary of the heading for the account number field. And you'll need to kind of look at the figure 1-75 on page 45. And what we want to do is, again, we're pointing to the lower boundary of the heading for the account number field, and we're just dragging that down to kind of heighten the first row of the report, okay, where it has the headings. So we just kind of heighten the row, and basically we use the same method that we used in Excel to heighten rows in Excel. We basically just use the same method there. We just drug down the lower boundary of the column heading there. All right. Then on step 5 on page 45, we need to point to the right boundary of the heading for the account number field. So right here on the right boundary of the account number field, we want to change the width of this column. So we're actually going to drag that a little bit to the left to kind of make it a little bit narrower. Okay, and you might want to look at the picture on page 45, figure 1-76, to see how much to change the column width for the account number field. And then it says on step 6 on page 45, it says use the same technique that we just used to change the width of the first column in the report, and we want to use that same method to resize the other columns in the report. So again, you'll need to look at the figure 1-77 on page 45 in your textbook, and we'll need to go through and modify the other columns. The account name column looks like it's fine without changing it. Amount paid looks like it's fine. Current due looks like it's fine. Now the account manager number, we do need to modify that one, so we're going to point to the right boundary of the account manager number field heading, and we're going to drag it back to the left to get it sized like it should be. And you'll notice on mine, I didn't actually get the height of row 1. I didn't get it heightened enough, so I'm going to drag that bottom border of the account manager number heading down just a little bit so that the complete account manager number field heading displays. And you may have to do that as well. Alright, so just check all your the row height of row 1 and check the column widths just to make sure they're all correct. And now we're going to go to page 46. It wants us to add some totals to this report. All right. So just like we learned in Excel how to get totals for various columns and rows in a worksheet, we can do the same thing in an Access report. All right. So what we're going to do is click the amount paid field right here. We're going to click on the amount paid field in the report, and we're going to click Design up on the ribbon. Okay, and you'll notice in the Grouping and Totals group here on the Design tab, there is a Totals button. It looks very similar to the Sum button that we used in Excel. All right, so you're going to click on Totals and then click Sum. And what it will do is it'll add the sum down here on the bottom of the amount paid field. All right. And you may have to do the same thing for the current due field. On mine, I already have the total showing for the current due field on my report. If you'll have to look on yours and see if you don't already have the total for the current due field, then you'll have to go through the same process. Click on current due and then click on totals and then click on sum. Okay, but make sure you have the sum of both the amount paid field down here and current due. All right, now you'll notice there are some things that we're going to need to modify on this report, especially the totals row, because right now the entire totals, the numbers that represent the totals, are not completely visible. So what we're going to need to do is click on one of the totals and point to the bottom boundary of the border around the total and drag down just a little bit so that the entire total is visible. Okay, obviously you would not want a total on a report that's not completely visible, so that's why we needed to modify that. Okay, now the last thing it wants us to do here is this little page 1 of 1 control over here. It wants us to click on that and then drag that over so that it is to the left of this vertical dashed line. That vertical dashed line represents the end of page 1 and the start of page 2. So if you were actually going to print this report, you would want that page 1 of 1 control to be on the first page and not part of it on the first page and part of it on the second page. So that's why we drug it over to the first page. Alright, then at this point we've made a lot of changes to this report, and so we need to click the Save button up on the Quick Access toolbar to save the changes to the report. Alright, and then the only other thing it has us do in the rest of the module here is on page 47, it has a section there. It shows you how to print the report. Again, since we're not printing the report, we're just going to be creating it and then uploading it into Ozarka. We can skip over that. And then on page 48, it shows you how to change the database properties. You can go through those steps if you want to. It's not really that critical for us, so I'm going to skip over that. You don't really have to do the change database properties. That's fine. And then the only other thing that it shows you how to do is how to close out of Access on page 50. Alright, so at this point what we need to do is go ahead and close out of the report. Okay, open up the navigation pane, and before you submit this Access Module 1 assignment, you'll want to go through the navigation pane and make sure first that you have all of the objects in the database that we created that should be there. You should have the account table, You should have the account manager table. You should have the account query. You should have the account form. And you should have the account financial report, okay, that we just created. So you should have all 6 of those objects. I'm sorry, 5. You should have 5 objects, okay? You should have the 2 tables, a query, a form, and a report. So you should have all 5 of those objects. Make sure, again, before you upload this assignment, that you have all of those objects. You also want to go in and open up each one of these objects and make sure that they are correct. For the tables, make sure the structure of the tables are correct by looking at those in design view. Look at the structure of each table. Make sure those are correct. Make sure that you have the records for each table and that those are correct. Also, go open up the query. Make sure that's correct. Do the same thing for the form. Same thing for the report. Double check everything. Make sure everything's correct before you upload it. Okay. Once you make sure that everything's correct, you can go ahead and upload it into Ozarka. Okay. And keep in mind that all of these objects that we created are in that one database called PrattLast Associates. Okay. So when you get ready to upload the database, the PrattLast Associates database that we created, it contains all of these objects. Okay, so you're just going to upload the database, and then when I open your database that you upload, I will be able to see all the objects that you have saved in the database. Okay, so the objects are actually part of the database file. Okay. Alright, so that concludes the review of Access Module 1. Thank you for listening, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you.